Look who's back. So, I had a few different ways I could come back to, the whole reviewer sphere. Hell, the last time I did it was... Actually, that's a good question. Give me a second. Let's have a look. Okay, so here we are on YouTube. We'll just jump into the search bar. Random hello person 1. Yeah, I wasn't good at naming back then. Alright, let's join in. Let's have a look. Oh, hang on. This is where I wanted to be. Perfect, that is the exact video I wanted. What does it say? Oh. Oh. Yeah, that explains quite a lot. Well, anyway, as I said, there's a few different things I looked at to come back to, the whole review sphere. And I think, before we begin, we should take a look at what we had on offer. Starting with a comparison between Siege and Earthrise Optimus Prime. And mainly, look how stubby Optimus's arms are. Come on. Moving on from there, we have the Combiner Wars G2 Wølexxgəe. This is probably the one I got the furthest through. However, last off is so fucking putrid, even a few swigs of Sambuca couldn't get me through it. But hang on, what about number 3 on the list? Iron Factory Bruticus. I mean, the knockoff. At this point, it's more super glue than anything else, so that was a write-off. And finally on my list was actually the Kamen Rider 01 Shot Riser. I might actually do this one. Now you look at the footage. I get to be an action star doing this one. Hey, a man can dream. However, as you can probably see at the title down below, that's not what we've done today. You see, here in this place called Melbourne, we can't really go to many places. I mean, yeah, with the whole world outside ending and all, not a lot of places open at the moment. However, I could still go to my local Kmart. And you know what? Next to that Kmart with a little shop, I like to call the Reject Shop. A little bit upper market from a $2 shop. And while I was there, I went to the toy section. I was looking for storage containers, of course. And I walked into the toy section. And I noticed something. I found not 1, not 2, but 3 Siege Micromaster sets that I hadn't seen before. Wave 1 Siege Voyages and Micromasters never actually saw much of a release here. Pretty much par for the course. Hell, I gotta wait for Netflix Wave 2 for my own impactor. Oh, and by the way, that was most of the effects budget for this video, so we're going low budget from here, okay? Sounds good? Alright, let's get into it. So, starting at Wave 1, we have Top Shot and Flak. Top Shot here is decked out in tan and brown, and he is what I can only assume as being something akin to a 6-wheel APC tank hybrid thing. I assume it has a real-life counterpart, but at the end of the day, I don't care. I like it. It's a little vehicle with a BFG on it. Flak, on the other hand, is a little green missile truck, and not gonna lie, guys, I love it. It's just such a little thing. It's really nice. Unfortunately, his launchers can't move, but you can lift him ever slightly if you break the transformation. For the most part, all Micromasters here will share a basic transformation. Fold out legs, fold away kibble on the back, pull out arms. Typically, they might have a little moment that makes the transformation unique. Top Shot's is folding the heels up, and Flak's is folding the head out. Hey, I never said they were great moments, but at least there's something. Robot modes are similarly pretty nice. The introduction of red and blue for the waist is a nice touch, and the introduction of grey on Flak is a welcome change. Although he has no hands, only wheels. Might make picking things up a little bit difficult. And seeing that these are the introduction for Micromasters today, these can also set up the basic posability they almost all share. Ball joints in the shoulders and hips, these two Both have hinged knees. And Top Shot has a little bit of head swivel, but I find it's just not worth the effort to move. The other feature Micromasters have in this line is combining together into weapon modes, which at the best of times is putrid, and at the worst of times is downright laughable. You'll see what I mean. These two here, let's face it, their weapon mode is pretty putrid, with the looking pretty poor. I find personally making them two separate weapons tends to work just a little bit better, except that we can see all of Top Shot staring directly up into the sky no matter what. They all do have 5mm ports to be held by, and mostly have the siege blast effect ports around their bodies to add explosions here and there as well. Moving on from there, we have Road Handler and Swindler. Road Handler is the red Firebird / Corvette looking thing. I don't really know my cars. I'm a simple man. Bit of cricket, bit of footy, and my favourite beer in my hand. Couple of rays from the outside, and tell you what, if you put a ute in front of me, I am set for life, mate. However, the black hinge in the middle of the hood is mighty conspicuous, if I say so myself. Swindler, on the other hand, is based upon the famous DeLorean, and he isn't too shabby either. Nice colours, nice sculpt. The two make for a very nice pair, with a nice contrast in shapes being quite appealing. So, for their transformations, they're basic Micromaster affair again, with the legs folding out of the back, the hoods moving to their backs, and Swindler is unique for the fact that only the centre of his hood folds back, and I gotta say, in a pretty neat way. Their robot modes, they're nice. The tall shoulders of Swindler makes for a nice visual difference on top of each other's colours. Road Handler has introduced some yellow and silver in the chest, and a nicely sculpted head with a nice blue face. And sadly, a hole in the chest with just the most painfully obvious screw front and centre. Swindler adds the inverse colouring of Road Handler, being bluer with a yellow face, and also suffers from the same screw in the chest. I have noticed that Road Handler's legs don't stay on very securely. Not a major issue, but something I thought you should keep track of. Moving on from here, you might have noticed, as I just mentioned, they both have 5mm holes in their chests. Now, this is to accommodate the combining feature, as they too form a weapon. This one being the multi-neck particle exhaust cannon. Yeah, that's a mouthful. Boy, is that a wonky looking thing. There are again points for attaching the blast effects, and I highly recommend using these two as separate weapons. Don't know about you, I just think it looks a little bit less silly. On to Wave 2 now with Red Heat and Stakeout, a fire truck and police car respectively, and wait a minute, hang on. Let's bring back Top Shot for a second. Okay, let's enhance again. They're the same figure. Yeah, so this is another feature of the Micromasters. There are shared molds between figures. This practice isn't actually that uncommon in Transformers. Take these two figures of Drift here. One is the Age of Extinction figure, and one is the Last Night edition. Both of them are very, very similar in robot mode with only minor changes. However, both turn into very different vehicles, one being a Bugatti and one being a Mercedes. Granted, it's a great way to introduce more figures at a low cost, and yet it still feels like I'm getting gypped, especially seeing it's only Wave 2. Because of this, it changes my opinion of the vehicle mode. I find it to be a bit plain, a bit bland. The ladder is very nice, especially seeing that it is extendable, plus it features a blast effect point on the tip. On the other hand, Stakeout I find isn't much to talk about. I mean, his lights are nicely picked out on top, and the Cybertronian police logos fit the theme of the line well, but he is just a little bit, again, a little bit bland. Transformations are clearly the standard affair we've already seen. Red Heat, being Top Shot, is almost identical, with the only moment now being folding the ladder up. Stakeout is probably about as standard as it gets, really. He is almost identical to Road Handler in his transformation scheme. As for the robot modes, they're fine. Somehow, Red Heat seems maybe a little bit more boring, a little bit more bland than his mold compatriot. The remolded head, it's a nice touch though. Stakeout, he's just another car former, really. He still has a very visible screw in the middle of his chest, and it is still rather frustrating. The posability, it's as standard, apart from Stakeout having ball-jointed knees and a head swivel. It's not much, but hey, at least it's something new. As for the weapon mode, it is based upon and is called the Biner Boost Salvage Blaster. And may I say, it's very dodgy. I don't recommend it. I'd say these are another one to use separately as weapons. Oh, and of course, blast effects are a thing.
Okay, so you might have noticed this by now, but they're all trying to be 4 things. They're trying to be combiners, robots, vehicles, and weapons. Unfortunately, Hasbro didn't learn their lesson from Power Core. They didn't learn that one mode will always be compromised by the other 2. Thankfully, the one lesson they did learn from this is that at least it's only the weapon modes compromised, and I mean, that makes me so happy. Like, you don't even know how happy. I didn't buy these for the weapons, guys. I bought these for the novelty of having these tiny little transformers there, right, for you to just pick up whenever you want. Look at them. I mean, look at them. They're so cute. Look how cute they are. Okay. Mini rant over. Let's move on to the next ones. What do we got next? Really? I have to do these as well? They're gonna add... Hang on a second. Hi. You want me to do the cassettes as well? They're gonna add 20 minutes to the review. Oh, I gotta talk about Soundwave. I gotta talk... Yeah, I know they're part of the fucking main line. I know they're part of the Micromasters. Like... Fine. So, Laser Beacon Ravage.
So as part of the Micromaster line, Hashtag included Soundwave's cassette buddies as part of the Wave 2 assortment alongside the espionage bot himself. And if you think that's terrible for someone to say with a slight lisp, you would be correct. This particular pack is Laserbeak and Ravage, and like... Okay, I get we can't have actual cassettes in this line, it won't make sense, so... These are, I guess, data discs? Not sure, really. Let's face it, they're just flat rectangles you can shove into the man's chest. Overall, the details aren't really worth talking about in this mode, so let's skip to robot modes. Or animal modes. Their transformations are very different from what we've seen already, with Ravagers being incredibly ingenious for such a small size. It's genuinely impressive. Laserbeak is quite simple, about as simple as you'd expect, really. However, the animal modes are interesting. I'd say off the bat, Laserbeak is the better animal. They both look okay. I mean, Laserbeak's screen eye is a nice touch, although I feel like they should have given Ravage the same treatment.
Actually, Ravage as a whole, he's a little bit iffy, being way too thick for his shape.
But unfortunately, he has to be to make the transformation work. From his very squat missiles and the mostly unpainted head, teamed with overall terrible proportions, I'd argue he's probably one of the weakest figures in the price point. For posability, Laserbeak has a couple of hinges in the neck, swivels on the wings, and splayable legs. Ravage has a couple of hinges in each leg, but any posing is pretty shoddy. Now for the fun part, the weapon mode, which is in here! Instead, these two fold out pegs in plank mode to become the... So, yeah, they aren't cassettes at all, or even data discs. This is actually the official alternate mode, best I could find out. And as a result, this is somehow sadder than a weapon mode, even though it works better. I mean, human shields are better than no shields, am I right? The good advantage of this, though, is that, at least in Laserbeak's case, folding out the peg allows for perching on Soundwave's forearm. You know, nice attention to detail. And, you know, overall, these two aren't that bad. It's been nice to have something different to break up the monotony. And, speaking of monotony, we get to advance to Wave 3 now, with Blackjack and Hyperdrive, and, okay, I want to bring this into Photoshop for a second. I have a sneaking suspicion about something. Okay, here we are in Photoshop, so we'll start with the windscreens on Blackjack. Here we go, we'll make him a nice dark black. Just let it load, there we go. Let's just increase the saturation on that a little bit. Alright, moving on to his body, we'll make that... I want to make it greyish silver. I think that's what we need to do here. I think that's what it's reminding me of. So we just let that load. Come on, computer, you're running way better. Come on, man. Come on, you shouldn't take this long. And here we go. Here we go. There we go. Alright, that's starting to look a bit closer to what I had in mind. Just, you know, make it a little bit brighter. Here we go. Alright, now for Hyperdrive, we'll make the grey. I think we'll make that black as well. I feel like it's supposed to be black for some reason. Just hold out with me on this one. Here we go. Let's just increase the saturation ever so slightly. Perfect. Alright, and finally for his body. Now, I want to make his body a nice, not fully vibrant red, but just a nice, somewhat pale red. I don't know why. I just feel like that's what it needs to be right now. And, my god. They're Road Handler and Swindler. Of course. Yeah, so these two are just repaints of Road Handler and Swindler. I mean, makes the name Swindler make a lot of sense, surprisingly. I mean, it makes my life a bit easier, because I've already talked about these. Personally, I prefer the colours of these two compared to the Autobots, but I can't really describe it properly. I can't say anything different. The powder blue and the black are quite nice. The grey and the gold are also quite nice. And personally, just find it vibes a little bit better. Even better, I can actually skip transformation. You've already seen it. However, getting onto the robot modes, I find them lacking. Like, the head and chest has been remolded for each figure. And Blackjack has introduced some purple as well, but I just find he looks really bland. I don't know how to describe it. They're just both very bland. The weapon modes are not quite the same as the original release of these molds, although that's not saying a whole lot. It's still a very average looking weapon. Sadly, I can't properly repeat the joke again, seeing that I can't find the name of these two. And granted, I didn't really try that hard. Wave 5 had an interesting shelf life here in Australia, to say the least. As in, they only arrived like 3 weeks after Earthrise kicked off. And it was at half price in local Toy Worlds and Toy Kingdoms alike. Consisting of 4 fresh molds, we again get to break up the monotony. And even more so, starting with Direct Hit and Power Punch, the Micromaster combiners of this line. An old concept from the Micromaster subline that made the figures combine in vehicle mode. These two form a cannon transport, and yeah, I really like it. I mean, the colours are just pure late G1 goodness. They combine together with the help of a 5mm peg, and hell, even all 8 wheels roll, which I gotta say is pretty spiffy. Direct Hit forms the front, and he gets the better of the paint for vehicle mode, with all his windows picked out in a nice silver paint. Thanks to also having a little gun placement on the top, picked out in gunmetal, he probably forms the more solid, singular vehicle mode out of the two. Power Punch is less successful, being just a box with a stick on top, but he does get the added benefit of having blast effect ports, and even more interesting, he has them on both ends of the turret, allowing for some blowback effects using the Siege blast effect ports if desired. Transformations are again the standard affairs we've already seen. However, Direct Hit's moment is folding most of the entire roof of the vehicle under his feet to form his heels, while Power Punch's moment is tabbing the gun into his back. Not as special as Direct Hit. Now, straight off the bat, I love these robot modes. The introduction of the black and more pink is just...
oh, chef's kiss.
The attention to detail, the colouring in the lower arms in blue to highlight them, it just does wonders. Both head sculpts are arguably quite boring, but enough work is put in to help differentiate the two. Posability is again standard, except Direct Hit having a ball-jointed set of knees, and yeah, I'd have to say at this point, these are the two I would recommend the most. They just work the best. And then we get to the weapon mode. For this, we go back to vehicle mode to show just how incredibly complex it actually is for how small it is. To the point where I've decided we're going to do this live.
Okay, so I've even put the lav mic back on for this because I want to show you just how complicated this is and walk it through to all of you step by step. Now, as you can see, I've put them back in their vehicle mode. So what we're going to do is, and again, it's a very complex transformation. The first step is we're going to peg in the gun turret to the top of the vehicle mode. We're going to rotate them around so that the back of the vehicle is facing towards you. Flip it upside down. And yeah, there you have the weapon mode.
By far the laziest of them. Far and away, hands down. Can't get any lazier than this, but it is probably my favourite of them. I mean, yeah, it's lazy, but it still feels like an actual weapon, thanks to the 4 effect ports on the front for maximum explosions. Rounding out Wave 5 and, sadly, Siege as a whole, we have 2 more cassettes. Ratbat and Frenzy Rumble. Officially, this is Rumble, but like, I know someone's going to get mad at me either way, so plank modes. Rumble is probably the best of the planks, looking complete from almost every angle, with the red and black looking nice enough, and Ratbat is comfortably the weakest alt mode I have ever seen in my entire time collecting Transformers. Purely because there is just 1/3 of the fucking thing missing! Like, what is this, mate? I mean, sure, the trim helps, but especially for being the alternate mode, this just isn't on. The transformations of these two are unique, Rumble being nicely reminiscent of the G1 figure, but streamlined due to the size. However, unfortunately for Ratbat, for some reason they decided to make his neck double hinge detented in a hexagonal formation compared to the traditional rounded edge. This makes it very hard to fold out without a tool for me personally. Robot modes are pleasant, if a little blocky, thanks to the plank nature of their plank modes. Rumble looks almost brilliant, the chest detailing and legs looking very nice, yet I can't help feeling he looks too squat in the torso overall. Ratbat looks quite nice, but the fact that his entire torso is painted one single colour over the top of the purple is a sad case of poor paint management on their part. Also, he's a brick. I mean, sure, you can use the transformation points as posability, but they aren't. To me, I see it as a glorified brick that looks sort of okay. Being plankformers, these two can also fit in Soundwave's chest. However, they seem to be ever so slightly thicker in every dimension. Enough to make it a bit of a tight fit. So tight, they can get stuck on occasion. They also form the version 3 and 4, and somehow looks just as tragic as before. Rumble forms a literal human shield, like literally it's just him folded up with his head facing towards the blast, and Ratbat is certainly curled up trying to protect himself. They also don't really store anywhere on the vehicle mode for Soundwave. Like, I can barely even wedge one of them under the arms for it to just fall out of place. Just a bit of a design oversight overall.
And sadly, with that, we come to the end of Siege Micromasters. I mean, what can we say? They're cheap. I mean, what do you expect? Masterpieces? I mean, between me and you, masterpieces ain't all that masterpiece anymore. There, I said it. However, this is not where the story ends. For you see, we still have Earthrise to talk about.
A quick note before we begin Earthrise is that many of the late wave Siege figures were released or will be released in the Earthrise line. Direct Hit and Power Punch are getting re-released as part of Earthrise. So too were Smashdown and Rung, and hell, even Astro Train got a fresh release in this toy line. Onto the two figures themselves, Trip Up and Daddy-O. These two are more of the car-type Micromasters we've already seen, with Trip Up being loosely based on an old Mustang, and Daddy-O being based upon an old Chevy Hot Rod. And like, I love these vehicles. There's some really nice attention to detail here. Like, both have rear wheels bigger than the front. I like that detailing. The flame patterns are on point, and may I say, the engine blocks are quite aesthetic for the size. And also, Daddy-O was originally called Big Daddy, and that just makes me happy. As for transformations, they're the bog standard we've already seen, with the engines actually hiding a hinge for the back kibble. They end up sharing most of their design cues with the DeLorean mold, so the center of the hood folds back, in a less interesting way, and the arms have very large spires. So, I really want to like Trip Up's robot mode, but like, it just doesn't work for me. The green is brilliant, but it just feels out of place on this white for some reason. Looks environmentally conscious in the wrong way. I'll stick to my Galil Eco for that one. Plus, he really can't stand up well, needing to be tilted forward on his hips with his arms forward to hold up well. I think Daddy-O works a lot better, seeing it carries over the orange across to the robot mode. Don't get me wrong, we established earlier that introducing a new colour or two can work. I just find that it's not for Trip Up. You might disagree. They too have technically got a weapon mode, but there was never any info on the packaging or in photography either, so just like, don't. Seriously, just forget they do the thing as much as you can. And with that, we sadly reach our final figures for the day, Bombshock and Growl. And I get to bring back one joke one last time, because these seem a bit familiar, don't they? Yeah, so these two round out this review way better than you can ever imagine. Almost like I planned it this way, seeing that these two are based on the Autobot Military Patrol figures that we saw at the very start of the video. Bombshock shares the turret and heels from Top Shot, hell, even the name sounds similar, and Growl is based on Flak. I know it doesn't look it, but you'll see this later. This also means that there are now 3 mainline releases that all share the same parts in the space of 12 months. Just let that sink in. Anyway, the vehicle modes are nice, with Bombshock being a nice little tank, and Growl a nice military support vehicle. Both can actually spin their turrets, and Bombshock can even tilt his a little too, although he has no wheels, just in case anyone was wondering. Transformations are a little bit different, seeing as Bombshock has 2 moments in his transformation. The first being spinning the turret, and the second actually being one of my favourites of today, being that the chest panel flips down over the torso. It's simple, but very effective. Growl, I find, is basically the boring version of Flak, seeing that his legs are the back of the vehicle, and he has massive blocks of kibble on his back, as well as the turret being a parts-forming piece that plugs into the arms. Either arm, to be precise. And for the final time today, we have robot modes, and this is where the Flak influence comes in on Growl. As you can see, they use the same chest and thigh pieces. Although, it might just be me, but it looks like they barely changed the shade of grey they used for those pieces. The silver on the waist and the arms works nicely, and it's funny to see a figure with a giant gun wielded Megatron styled that's so small. Bomb Shock is mostly perfect in my opinion. I love the use of the metallic blue for the head, the shoulders and hands being picked out in black, and hell, he can stand up no problem too. Posability is again bog standard.
And the weapon mode is... oh, I forgot how bad this one was.
It's so disjointed with, oh god, a bloody hole down the middle of it. Yeah, I think I'll pass on this one. And with that, sadly, we close the book on Micromasters for the time being. Of course, new ones are coming out. And I mean, of course, the 2 Siege sets that I'm missing finally show up while I'm finalising the edit in places that aren't shut down due to current events. But, I mean, we're here to talk about what we've seen. And for the price, they are okay. So for 20 AUD or 15 US, so that works out to $10 each, or 7.5 each, $7.50. Yes, they are lesser than a Legends/Legion figure like these fellas that I've shown you here, worth the same amount, but they do fill a void for some people. And the designs are definitely something you wouldn't see anywhere else outside the 80s. I mean, I feel personally an affinity to the ones I got for half price more than, say, Troop Up and Daddy-O at full price, and comfortably Stakeout is probably my least favourite outside of the cassettes. But, I mean, on that note, if I was to pick a duo that I would say pick up if you find them at a good price, it would have to be Direct Hit and Power Punch. Overall, they are just the most complete as a set. And as I sit here, pretty ordinary state honestly, recording off my iPhone because I'm a dumbass, I want to thank you for joining me on this adventure today. And, I mean, I'm sure I can find something to review in the future.